What's up guys, I'm Alex with the SignalRGB team. In this video, you'll see what it's like to build in the Corsair 5000X mid tower. I'll also show you a mistake I make later in the video that you'll want to avoid doing too. These are all the parts I'm using, and I'll be leaving a link to the parts list in the video description. The motherboard is an Asus Z690E. For RAM, I'm going with 64GB of Dominator Platinum running at 5200 MHz. The SSD is a 2TB Samsung 980 Pro. The power supply is an HX1200i. The processor is an Intel 12900K, which will be cooled with the H150i Elite Capellix. And finally, for GPU, I went with the EVGA 3090. Now let's move on to unboxing the case. Once opened, I recommend flipping the box over to let the case slide out on its own, instead of trying to pull the case out of the box because it's really heavy. Then you'll want to remove all of the panels to make it lighter and easier to work with. This case comes with 3 Corsair SP Elite fans, and the AIO comes with 3 fans. So I only needed to get one more fan for the rear end of the case. At the back of the case, you'll see this door that opens, and inside you'll find the included Node Core RGB controller. I recommend watching my guide to RGB controllers and adapters after this video. I'll leave a link in the video description. You'll also find a fan repeater, which is basically a splitter for fan power, so that you can connect up to 6 fans to a single fan power header on your motherboard. Down here where the power supply would be is an optional cover which goes here. It's only necessary to use this cover if you plan to mount more fans here. This case includes cable routing channels that make cable management a little easier, and I'll be showing you what that's like. I also recommend removing this door so it's not in your way. I removed the hard drive bay since I have no use for it. There's only 2 screws and then it pops right out. I'm also left with a bunch of room for excess cables.
It's free real estate.
Now with the case completely stripped, it's time to prepare the motherboard. If you don't already know, it's good practice to put the processor, RAM, and SSD in the motherboard first before mounting it inside the case.
Nice.
Now it's time to prepare the power supply. Just like with the motherboard, you'll want to attach all the cables you'll be using before installing the power supply in the case. For this build, I'll need 2 PCIe cables, 2 CPU cables, 1 SATA power cable, and of course the 24-pin cable. Once the power supply is in, I like to plug all the cables into the motherboard and then cable manage everything before adding any other parts to the case. It's much easier this way instead of doing all the cable management at the very end when the cables are all over the place. First, I secured the main cables like the 24-pin cable and the CPU cables. Then I moved on to cables coming from the RGB controller and fan repeater. This is where you can take advantage of the extra Velcro straps that come with the case. You can find them inside of the box that's attached to the hard drive bay. After routing the cables, I connected the SATA power and tucked away the connectors that I won't need. Then I can connect the 3 RGB fans at the front of the case and cable manage them too. This is how it looks. All that's left is to connect the fan repeater and RGB controller to the motherboard. Now I can move on to adding the rest of the parts, starting with the fan at the rear end of the case, then mounting the AIO and its 3 RGB fans while maintaining the cable management. I find it easiest to lay out all the fans on the radiator and then put a screw in each corner, so the fans stay in place and I can finish it off with a screwdriver. Personally, I don't trust the stock thermal paste, so I always wipe it off and add my own. This AIO comes with a commander core controller that has ports for fan power and RGB control. It's easily mounted with the included adhesive pads. Now to mount the radiator, you slide the cables through the case first and then screw it in. And this is where I realized my mistake. I always add the mounting bracket at the very end.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
So when I went to go do it, I realized that the back of the 5000X has a metal plate that's covering the holes. Luckily, it wasn't too big of a deal and it didn't ruin my cable management that much. That plate comes off with a single screw. Then I was able to add the mounting bracket and the standoffs and finished installing the AIO on the processor. This is something I'll definitely keep in mind forever, and I recommend you all add the mounting bracket to your motherboard at the very start of your build to avoid making this mistake. I replaced this plate with a custom one that says SignalRGB. I'll leave a link to where you can order your own custom plate in the video description. Here's another small tip. When you plug in the cable for the AIO, you can tuck it behind the motherboard heatsink for a really clean look. Now at the back of the PC, I connected the rest of the cables into the commander core controller and I finished up the cable management. You'll know you did a decent job with cable management if you get this door to close normally.
Yeah, boy.
The last piece of the puzzle is the GPU, and this PC is good to go. Here's a montage of the PC running various SignalRGB effects. Thanks for watching. I hope this video helped guide you if you decided to build in the 5000X. Or maybe this video helped you decide which case you wanted to go with. Be sure to comment if you want to see us do more builds with different cases. And don't forget to like and subscribe.